The moment my daughter's smile fell, the backyard went quiet for me. Music still thumped from the rented speakers, and blue balloons lifted softly in the afternoon heat, but all I heard was the thin crinkle of tissue paper in Lily's hands. Sunlight scattered across the pool like shattered glass. The mermaid performer waved for a photo, and inside, a glittery gift bag with my daughter's name in gold script. There was a single sticky note. No treats, no trinkets, just 5 neat words in my sister's handwriting. "Try harder next year, sweetie." Lily's fingers trembled. Her braid, the one I'd woven that morning, had loosened along her temple. She closed the bag before anyone else could see. Her small body folded in on itself like paper in the wind. Across the patio, my sister Amanda laughed with 2 mothers in linen dresses, her hand floating on a sea of bracelets. Everything about that moment was pretty until it wasn't. I moved toward Lily through a tangle of white chairs and dripping swim towels. The air smelled like sunscreen and sugar. When she finally looked up, her eyes were glassy and brave the way children get when they think they have to protect you from the worst of it. I reached for the bag. She shook her head and said, barely breathing, "Can we go home?" Before I go on, tell me where you're listening from, down in the comments. And if you've ever smiled through something that hurt, because family was watching, tap that like button and share this with someone who'll understand. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what comes after a note like that. But to understand how that bag ended up in my daughter's hands, you need to know how we got to that backyard in the first place. I teach 4th graders at a public elementary school where the bulletin boards lean and the copy machine coughs out paper like it has a cold. The pay is steady, not generous. Our 2-bedroom apartment sits over a dry cleaner and smells faintly of starch on rainy days. The oak table in our kitchen has 3 scratches from Lily's art knives, and I've kept every one. If you open our refrigerator, you'll find leftovers labeled with masking tape, a jar of pickles, and a watercolor magnet of a bluebird that Lily painted in art club. I measure a good life by those small things: the coffee that warms your hands, the porch light you remember to switch on the person who texts when you're late. My sister measures differently. Amanda lives 15 miles and several worlds away in a white columned house with hydrangeas the size of dinner plates and a front door that whispers when it closes. She was born with the confidence of someone whose ponytail never fell out of place. In our childhood photos, I'm the kid kneeling to tie her shoe while she holds the trophy. She says she values excellence, but what she really values is the mirror that tells her she's still ahead. For years, I told myself it was harmless. For years, I brought my daughter into it because I believed family was a kind of church and you shouldn't miss a Sunday. Lily adores her cousins. She studies their cartwheels on her tablet and practices in our living room where the rug slips on the hardwood. She picks colors that match their rooms when she draws, and she asks me with the kind of hope that can break you if they'll like what she made. My job has always been to make sure she knows she's enough, even on the days she doubts it. It is easier to do that work when the world is kind. The twins turned 10 on a Saturday clear as glass. We drove 40 minutes under a sky that looked ironed. Lily wore a purple dress with silver stars we picked up on sale, and she carried 2 friendship bracelets she'd braided while humming to herself at the table. She had wrapped the journals we found on clearance in plain paper, and then drawn her own constellation of hearts and portraits. She whispered, "Do you think they'll like them?" I said, the only true thing I could say. "You made them with love." Amanda opened the door before we could knock. Her lipstick didn't smudge when she kissed my cheek. Her eyes swept me like a scanner and beeped at my hair. "Let me get you a brush," she said, which is how she says hello. Lily slipped past us toward the balloon arch her gifts held like a small, beating bird. The house was set to under the sea, and everything had been professionally persuaded to sparkle. A hotel pan of ice glowed with blue cocktails named something precious. Photographs of the twins in mermaid tails glittered from poster boards like movie premieres. I said hello to people I'd only meet once, and I chewed shrimp too carefully, and I watched the waterline where party and performance met. Lily tried to slide into the circle of girls by the pool. She hovered at the edge waiting for an opening that didn't come. When she sat, she drew. That's where she blooms. Children noticed, then lined up for portraits, leaning close to see themselves through her pencil. For 10 minutes, my daughter's gift lifted her from the fringe to the middle. The air softened. Then Amanda appeared, smiled in that bright way that dims other lights, and announced the games were starting. Teams were chosen. Captains called names. Sophia, then Isabella, then everyone else. Then Lily placed last by a cheerful party coordinator who chirped, "Everyone's included." I stood beside a palm-shaped decoration and rolled my shoulders to keep from freezing. During sea creature trivia, Lily's answer about seahorses was right and small. Isabella's voice cut across it like a ribbon. We swam with dolphins in Hawaii. The crowd cooed. Later, someone whispered that Lily doesn't take dance because her mom's a teacher, as if the word itself were a deficit. I didn't cry. I don't do that in public. I pressed my tongue to the roof of my mouth, the trick I tell my students when the tears come. James, my brother-in-law, slid over and asked about school and my class hamster, and if I still brought cupcakes on Fridays. He's the only one in that house whose shoes look like they've known a gravel driveway. He grinned when I told him a student had written an essay about inventing a machine that turns bullies into librarians. It felt good to laugh with someone who wasn't scoring it. Cake landed with drama-dry ice, drifting like fog at sea sparklers, spitting gold in the sunlight. We sang. Wishes were made with practiced breath control, then gifts. A designer purse, a gift card that could pay a month's rent where I live, a phone glossy as a polished stone. Finally, Lily's packages appeared lifted from the pile. Isabella peeled the paper on her bracelet and said, "Oh, it's handmade," as if she were identifying a stain. Sophia tried hers on for a full heartbeat and said, "Very crafty," which in certain zip codes is a compliment that underlines itself. Lily's face did its work smile on duty eyes, careful. "She is proud, that girl. She will not hand you her hurt." That is the moment I should have taken her hand and walked us out past the hydrangeas. But I stayed because I am good at staying. The party turned to favors, and the favor bags appeared like treasure heavy with sweets and tiny boxes from stores where they know your name. Amanda called names like a master of ceremonies. For everyone who mattered, she said, and then with a small sideways glance at me, and one for family. Lily took her bag and found a quiet corner by the shade of the tent. She lifted tissue thought twice and closed it like something delicate had died inside. I finished a conversation that sounded like praise but said nothing and crossed to her. Up close, I could hear the whisper of her breathing and see the damp line at her lashes. I asked if she wanted to go. She said yes. I asked to see the bag. She said no. That's when I realized this wasn't new for her. She'd already learned the shape of hiding. I didn't make a scene. There is power in choosing the door over the stage. We walked through the kitchen with its cool marble and fruit arranged like a magazine. Amanda intercepted us with a smile that felt like frost on a windshield. Leaving so soon, she asked, voice-pitched for an audience, "You haven't even seen the final surprise." "We got our surprise," I said, keeping my tone low. There are words I've never said to my sister because I believe the high road requires silence. The problem is, the high road can start to look a lot like a tongue you've bitten through. I slid the sticky note from Lily's bag into my pocket with 2 fingers slow and deliberate, like I was removing a splinter. Amanda's eyes flicked to my hand and back. "If something was amiss, our planner will fix it," she said, as if kindness could be outsourced. Her perfume was citrus and expensive. Her bracelets clicked when she folded her arms. Somewhere behind us, someone laughed too loudly at nothing. "We'll talk later," I said. I felt Lily's fingers curl into the fabric at my hip. That's what a child does when they are brave and tired. At the same time, they anchor to the person who will not let go. We stepped out the side door into heat that had softened toward evening. The lawn was too green, the sky too blue, the normal world too normal for a note like that to exist in it. Gravel crunched under my flats as we cut down the path toward the driveway. James jogged after us, concern written in the line between his eyes. But there are moments that do not belong to anyone else. I told him we were fine. He didn't believe me. He let us go anyway. In the car, Lily buckled her seatbelt and wiped her cheeks with the backs of her hands like she'd seen me do at the sink. I started the engine and sat for a long breath with my palms on the wheel and the air conditioning humming. On the passenger seat, the glitter bag rested like a prop nobody wanted. I could feel the square shape of the sticky note against my thigh, warm through the fabric of my pants. We pulled away from the house. The balloon arch shrank in the rearview mirror until it was only color, then nothing. The neighborhood gave way to the highway, and the highway gave way to the familiar turn where the streetlights lean and the gas station sign flickers at dusk. Lily watched the sky. I watched the road. Neither of us spoke for 3 exits. At the red light by the old feed store, Lily's voice found the smallest whisper. "Mom," she said, and there was a pocket of air between us that felt like a door we had both been afraid to open. The light turned green. I eased forward. On my right, the laundromat's windows glowed warm and ordinary. She tried again. "Mom, this wasn't the first time." The rest of her sentence hung in the space between the dash and the windshield, fragile as a thread. I tightened my grip on the wheel until my knuckles paled, kept my eyes on the road, and felt a shift inside me like a picture straightening on a wall you've walked past, crooked for years. "Tell me," I said, steady as I could manage. And as the city lights rose to meet us, my daughter drew a breath to begin. Lily's voice trembled in the quiet car, the seatbelt strap cutting a diagonal across her small shoulders. She said the words so softly, I almost thought I imagined them. This wasn't the first time. The world outside blurred streetlights, trees, and the dull silver of the guardrail. I asked what she meant, keeping my eyes on the road. She hesitated, rubbing the edge of her sleeve between her fingers, the way she does when she's trying to be brave. Then in fragments, she told me. The twins making jokes about her clothes at Christmas, the whispers about my job. How their mother had told them that we settle for less, because some people just don't aim high enough. Each word sank deeper than the last. I listened, my hands tightening on the steering wheel until the leather groaned. She didn't cry this time. She just looked tired, older somehow, like she'd carried this weight longer than I knew. When she finished, she pressed her forehead to the window, watching the blur of light slide past. I didn't know what to say at first. Every response I thought of, every apology, every explanation felt small. Finally, I said the only thing that felt true. "None of this is your fault. You are not the problem, sweetheart." She gave a faint nod, but didn't look at me. Her reflection in the window looked lost in a world that kept grading her for existing. We drove the rest of the way in silence, the kind that hums inside your chest. By the time we reached our apartment, the sky had dimmed to a soft navy. I parked in our usual spot under the flickering lamp and helped her gather the glittery gift bag and her sketchbook. The bag seemed to weigh nothing, but I held it like it might explode. Inside, the apartment smelled like the cinnamon candle I'd left burning earlier. Our space felt safe again, worn but real. I told Lily to change into her pajamas while I made grilled cheese and tomato soup. It was our ritual on hard days, something warm and ordinary. She sat on the couch, wrapped in her blanket, while the cartoon on the TV filled the room with gentle noise. When she asked if she could see the note again, I hesitated. But then I realized she wasn't asking to hurt herself, she was asking to understand. I handed it to her, the yellow paper, now crinkled from the heat of my pocket. She studied it for a long moment, tracing each letter with her finger. "Try harder next year, sweetie. Maybe Aunt Amanda didn't mean it to be mean," she whispered. "She knew what she was doing," I said quietly, sitting beside her. "Some people think they can make themselves taller by making others smaller. But that doesn't make them any less wrong." She looked at me, then eyes wet but steady. "So what do we do now?" I brushed her hair back, feeling the braid loosen under my fingers. "First we eat, then we rest. Tomorrow, we'll talk about the rest." We didn't say much more that night. She fell asleep halfway through the movie, her head on my lap. I stayed there long after the credits rolled, listening to her soft breathing, staring at that note on the coffee table. The letters looked smug under the lamp's light. When the clock crept past midnight, I slipped away to the kitchen. I filled the kettle and let the sound of boiling water drown out the noise in my head. I'd tolerated Amanda's cutting remarks for years, her lectures on parenting, her pity disguised as advice, her habit of turning every conversation into a contest. But this wasn't about me anymore. This was about my child. I sat at the table with my tea and the note in front of me. Something shifted inside me, an exhaustion so deep it burned clean. For years, I'd chosen peace over confrontation, telling myself that family harmony mattered more than pride. But harmony built on silence isn't peace. It's surrender. Before I could talk myself out of it, I picked up my phone and called my mother. She answered on the third ring, her voice groggy but alert. "Ethel, is everything all right? I just need to ask you something," I said. "Did you know how Amanda treats Lily?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "I know she can be sharp," my mother said carefully, "but she loves you both in her way. She put a note in Lily's gift bag today. Told her to try harder next year. She's been mocking her for years, Mom, and you've seen how she talks to me." The silence stretched until I thought the line had gone dead. Finally, she spoke, her voice smaller than before. "I didn't know it had gone that far." "It has," I said, "and I'm done pretending it's fine. She needs to understand what she's done, not with shouting, but with truth." My mother's tone shifted, wary. "Ethel, please don't start another war. You know how Amanda gets when she feels attacked. She's already been attacking us for years," I said. "This time, she'll just have to see it." My mother hesitated, then said quietly, "I'll stand by you. Do what you think is right." After we hung up, I called Diane. She was my anchor friend, the kind of woman who brings soup when you're sick and takes photos at every school recital just in case you forget your camera. She answered with her usual dry humor. "Ethel, it's midnight. Is the building on fire?" "Not yet," I said, "but I'm planning something that might light a fuse." By morning, I had a plan. Not revenge, exactly something closer to revelation. I wanted Amanda to feel what Lily felt when she opened that bag, the sting of being reduced to nothing by someone who should have known better. But I also wanted her to see the damage, to look at it without her usual excuses. When Lily woke up, her voice was hoarse from crying. She padded into the kitchen in her socks, rubbing her eyes. I poured her cereal and asked if she'd help me with something important. She tilted her head. "Is it for school?" "No," I said. "It's for us. We spent the morning gathering what I needed. Old photos from childhood. Amanda scowling beside me at my 5th birthday, Amanda scribbling over my name on a school certificate. Little moments I'd never thrown away because some part of me had been keeping the record. Then I asked Lily to make a drawing. "What kind of drawing?" she asked. "Something that shows how yesterday made you feel," I said. She sat at the table for nearly an hour, coloring in silence. When she finally turned the paper toward me, I had to blink to steady myself. She'd drawn herself small and gray, standing apart from her cousins, who were bright and colorful. Above her head was a thought bubble filled with question marks and the words, "Try harder." "Are you sure you want me to see this?" I asked softly. She nodded. "If you don't, then no one will understand." I hugged her, holding on longer than she expected. "You're brave, Lily. More than you know." Diane arrived a little after 10 with her camera bag slung over her shoulder and coffee for both of us. When I told her what I planned to do, she nodded slowly. "You're not trying to humiliate her? You're holding up a mirror. There's a difference." We set up in the living room near the good light. Lily stood by the window holding the sticky note in front of her chest. Her face was calm, almost solemn. Diane took a few photos. No posing, no theatrics. Just honesty. When we were done, Lily asked, "What happens next?" I smiled faintly. "We make a gift bag of our own." We found one of the same glittery bags Amanda had used. Diane had brought extras from a craft store. Into it, we placed the photos Lily's drawing and a letter I wrote longhand, every word measured. I didn't accuse or insult, I explained. I told Amanda how her constant comparisons had shaped our childhoods, how her perfection had become a weapon, and how it had finally wounded a child who only wanted her approval. At the end of the letter, I wrote one sentence that mattered more than the rest. Family love should make people feel safe, not small. Lily tucked in the card she'd made for her cousins, but never given them a picture of all 4 girls holding hands with the words "family forever." We added a small mirror and one of Lily's favorite picture books about kindness. On top, I placed an invitation to Lily's upcoming art show at school. A bridge, if Amanda ever wanted to cross it. By the time we finished, the bag looked ordinary again, just another gift. But its weight carried years of unspoken things. That evening, I called my mother again to tell her what I planned to do. She listened quietly and said, "Do you want me there?" "Yes," I said, "but don't interfere. Just witness." We agreed to meet early the next morning. Diane would drive, staying close enough in case things turned bad. Before bed, I sat on the edge of Lily's mattress, tucking the blanket around her shoulders. She looked up at me with wide, steady eyes. What if Aunt Amanda gets really mad? She might, I admitted, but sometimes people need to be uncomfortable before they understand. She thought for a moment, then said, "I don't want to make her hate me." "This isn't about hate," I said. "It's about truth. You deserve to be treated with respect, and if we stay quiet, nothing changes." She nodded slowly, satisfied. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll be brave tomorrow." When the apartment finally went still, I stood by the window, watching the faint glow of the city. Somewhere in that silence, I realized how long I'd waited for permission to defend myself, to defend us. Tomorrow, that wait would end. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small at all. The morning came pale and cool, the kind of quiet that feels deliberate, as if the world itself is holding its breath. I dressed before sunrise, moving carefully so I wouldn't wake Lily too soon. Diane's car would be here by 7:30. The glittered gift bag waited on the counter, its contents resting in perfect order. Photos, drawings, letter mirror. Each piece a fragment of truth, all folded together under the soft tissue paper. Lily appeared in the kitchen before I could call for her. Her hair was loose, brushing her shoulders, and she carried the calmness of someone who had already decided to be brave. I poured her orange juice, watched her take 2 careful sips, and asked if she still wanted to come. She nodded without hesitation. "I want to see it through," she said. By the time Diane arrived, the sun had barely cleared the horizon. Her old station wagon hummed softly in the parking lot. She gave a short wave through the windshield before stepping out, coffee in hand, eyes sharp with quiet purpose. "You ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be," I said. We drove with the windows cracked open just enough to let in the early light. Lily sat in the back seat, her hands folded around the gift bag like it was something sacred. None of us spoke much. Even Diane, who usually filled silence with gentle humor, let it linger. The city gave way to the suburbs, and soon the trimmed hedges and stone mailboxes appeared like a rehearsal for what waited ahead. Amanda's neighborhood was still half asleep. Lawns sparkled with dew, and the air smelled faintly of cut grass. Diane parked 3 houses down where the angle of the street gave us a clear view of Amanda's front porch. The bag looked too small in my hand as we stepped out. I told Diane to stay ready just in case. She nodded and placed her thermos in the cup holder like a soldier setting down a weapon. When we reached the porch, I turned to Lily. "You can wait in the car if you'd rather." She shook her head and slipped her hand into mine. "We started this together," she said softly. I smiled at that. There are moments when you realize your child isn't just learning from you, they're teaching you how to stand taller. I placed the bag squarely on the welcome mat, rang the bell once, and led Lily to the side out of the line of the peephole. It took a moment. Then the familiar click of heels approached from inside. The door opened. Amanda appeared immaculate as always, dressed in tailored loungewear that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She looked down, frowning, then bent to pick up the bag. The sunlight caught on the gold ribbon as she lifted it. She glanced around the porch, her eyes scanning the empty yard. Satisfied no one was there, she carried it inside and let the door drift halfway closed. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then a sound rose from deep within the house, a scream that started sharp and broke mid-breath. It wasn't fear exactly. It was disbelief wrapped in outrage. I looked at Lily, whose eyes widened, and then we both heard a second sound, something falling hard against the marble floor. I stepped forward just as the door swung open again. Amanda stood there flushed and shaking, holding Lily's drawing in one hand and a handful of old photographs in the other. Her voice was jagged when she spoke. "What is this supposed to be? Ethel? Are you trying to humiliate me?" I took a steady breath. "No, I'm trying to make you understand. Understand what, that you've lost your mind." Her hand trembled, crinkling the paper. "You went through old photos to make some kind of spectacle. This is ridiculous." Before I could answer, Lily stepped from behind me. "It wasn't a spectacle," she said quietly. "It's how you made us feel." Amanda froze, eyes darting between us. She opened her mouth to respond, but another voice cut through the air. "What on earth is going on?" It was James, standing at the bottom of the staircase, in sweatpants and a half-buttoned shirt. He looked bewildered, still half asleep. I met his eyes and saw genuine concern, not the polished politeness he wore at parties. "Ask your wife," I said. Amanda snapped her head toward me. "Don't you dare drag him into this. You're blowing things out of proportion again." James came closer, reading the papers she still clutched. When his gaze landed on the sticky note, the one she'd written for Lily, his expression changed. All the warmth drained from it, replaced by something hard and unfamiliar. "Amanda," he said slowly, "tell me this isn't real." She looked caught between anger and panic. "It was a joke," she said, "an inside joke. Everyone knew it was harmless." "It wasn't harmless," Lily whispered. Her voice was small, but it carried. It made me feel like I wasn't good enough for any of you." Amanda's face faltered. She looked at Lily for the first time, not around her, not past her, but at her. And for a moment, she didn't have a response. The silence between us was thick enough to touch. Then a car door slammed outside. Another. I turned and saw my mother stepping out of a taxi, followed by our cousin Rachel and her husband. I hadn't expected them this soon, but their presence steadied me. My mother's face was pale, lips pressed tight as she walked toward the porch. Amanda's composure slipped another notch. "You called them?" she hissed. "They called themselves," I said. "You've been hurting people longer than you realize." Rachel joined us on the porch, folding her arms. "Amanda, we all saw how you treated Ethel for years. You turned every family event into a competition." Amanda's jaw tightened. "You're all ganging up on me now." Over a note. "It's not just a note," my mother said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "It's years of unkindness, years of putting yourself above everyone else. And now it's reached a child." Amanda turned to her husband. "You're just going to stand there while they attack me." James shook his head slowly. "No one's attacking you. They're telling you the truth." For a moment, the air felt charged like the seconds before a storm. Then from behind Amanda, two small figures appeared. The twins stood in the hallway, still in their pajamas. Sophia's voice wavered. "Mom, is this about the gift bags?" Amanda went still. "Go back upstairs," she said quickly. But Isabella didn't move. "We didn't think it was funny anymore," she murmured. "We told you that. Stop," Amanda said, her voice rising. "'Nough." James turned toward his daughters. "What do you mean?" Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "Mom said to put the note in Lily's bag. She said it would be a joke. We didn't want to, but she said we had to." Amanda's shoulders sagged. For the first time, she looked smaller, her confidence leaking out of her posture. "It was just supposed to be silly," she said weakly. "You know how sensitive they are." "No," I said quietly. "How human we are." Lily stood a little taller then. "It wasn't funny," she said, "and neither was telling people my mom couldn't buy nice clothes or saying my drawings looked like baby art." The twins exchanged glances, both of them crying now. They looked more like frightened children than polished reflections of their mother. James rubbed a hand over his face, exhaling hard. "Amanda, this has to stop." My mother stepped closer, her voice steady. "You owe them an apology. A real one." Amanda's eyes darted to the cluster of people around her. The husband she'd disappointed, the children who had betrayed her secrets, the sister she'd always believed beneath her. Her mouth closed, then opened again. "I'm sorry," she said at last, the words stiff, unfamiliar. "I shouldn't have done that to you, Lily. You didn't deserve it." She hesitated, then looked at me. "And I'm sorry to you too, Ethel, for the other things." I guess I went too far. I nodded once. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was acknowledgement, and that was more than we'd ever had. James placed a hand on her shoulder. "We need to talk, all of us. Inside." I looked to Lily, who gave a small nod. We followed them into the house. The air smelled of coffee and the faint trace of yesterday's perfume. We sat in the living room, the same perfect room where for years I'd felt out of place. Now it was Amanda who couldn't sit still, shifting on the edge of the couch. The next 2 hours were not easy. We spoke quietly, sometimes sharply, sometimes through tears. Amanda admitted that she'd always felt overshadowed, certain that I'd been our mother's favorite. My mother looked genuinely stunned. "You were the one we worried least about," she said. "We thought you had everything handled." I told Amanda how her constant perfection made me doubt myself, how I'd let her words shape Lily's sense of worth. Rachel shared her own memories of being dismissed at family gatherings. Each story layered over the next until the air felt thick with old dust being swept from forgotten corners. By the time we stood, something inside me had loosened. Not peace, not yet, but a quiet clearing where peace might grow. When we stepped outside, the morning had deepened into noon. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass, and somewhere down the block, someone was mowing their lawn. Lily slipped her hand into mine as we walked toward Diane's car. "Do you think Aunt Amanda really meant it?" she asked. "I think she's trying," I said. "And trying is where change begins." She looked thoughtful, watching a line of birds rise from the neighbor's tree. "I feel stronger," she said after a moment. I squeezed her hand gently. "That's because you are." As we drove away, I glanced in the mirror. Amanda stood at the end of her walkway, her arms folded, her hair lifting slightly in the wind. She wasn't shouting anymore. She just watched us go, the glitter bag still clutched against her chest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was leaving something behind. I felt like I was finally moving forward. The weeks that followed unfolded quietly, the kind of calm that feels earned rather than given. After that morning on Amanda's porch, the air between us all seemed thinner, fragile, but breathable. Lily and I returned home and slipped back into our routines, though nothing quite felt the same. There was a lightness in her steps, an ease I hadn't seen in months. She hummed while she drew, laughed more freely, and talked about school with a spark that used to come and go. On Sunday mornings, we began a new ritual: pancakes and art. I'd make coffee, she'd pull out her sketch pad, and together we'd fill our small kitchen table with color and conversation. Friends from work started joining us, bringing their own stories and laughter, until our apartment felt fuller than it ever had. Somewhere between the smell of syrup and the sound of pencil on paper, we built a version of family that didn't require permission. We stopped attending the usual family gatherings. I sent polite messages instead, clear and brief. When my mother asked if I planned to mend things soon, I told her that mending takes time and honesty, not another dinner table full of comparisons. She didn't argue. I think she finally understood that boundaries weren't anger, they were peace. One afternoon, as I graded papers in the living room, Lily came running from her bedroom holding an envelope. It was from James. Inside was a small note written in his tidy, slanted handwriting. He thanked me for standing my ground. Said that our conversation had started something in their home, a reckoning, he called it. He asked if he could visit just for coffee to talk. When he arrived that Saturday, he looked different, tired, yes, but lighter too. He carried a small package wrapped in brown paper. Lily was working at her art table by the window and waved shyly. James smiled at her before sitting across from me. "We've been going to therapy," he said. "All four of us." I waited, unsure what to say. "It's helping," he went on. "Amanda's facing things she's buried for a long time. The girls are learning how words can leave marks you don't see." He slid the package across the table. They made this for Lily. Inside was a scrapbook. Each page was a mix of photos and handwritten notes from Sophia and Isabella. Apologies written in careful loops, little drawings, even a page where the twins had pasted a cutout heart around a print of one of Lily's sketches they'd asked James to scan. At the end, there was an invitation, an art day at their house. Lily stood beside me, reading every word. When she reached the invitation, she looked up. "Can I go?" she asked softly. I hesitated. The old instinct to protect her flickered first. But then I saw the way her hand rested over the page, not with fear, but with hope. "You can," I said, "but I'll come with you." James nodded relief in his eyes. That's what I was hoping you'd say. The following weekend, we drove back to Amanda's house. The driveway felt the same. The air smelled of trimmed grass and lemon cleaner, but the atmosphere was different. The front door opened before we knocked. Amanda stood there without her usual armor. No heels, no bright lipstick, no hostess smile. She simply said, "Thank you for coming." Inside, the twins had transformed their playroom into a small art studio. Easels stood side by side, jars of water lined up like little soldiers. They'd covered the floor with newspaper and filled bowls with snacks. Lily's name was written in colorful chalk on the board. She froze for a second as if testing the air, then smiled. I watched her settle between the twins, showing them how to blend watercolor with salt for texture. They listened, asked questions, giggled when the colors spread in unexpected ways. The sound was ordinary and extraordinary at once, children relearning how to be kind. Amanda lingered near the door for most of the afternoon. When she finally came over, her voice was quiet. "You were right," she said. "I've spent my whole life trying to prove something. I thought if I looked perfect, people couldn't see how scared I was underneath." I didn't interrupt. She twisted her wedding ring as she spoke. "My therapist says I've been using control to hide insecurity. That I needed to feel superior because I never felt enough." Her eyes were damp when she looked at me. "I hurt you because of it. And I hurt Lily." It wasn't easy hearing her say it out loud. Part of me wanted to remind her that recognition didn't erase damage. But another part, the part that had seen how deeply pain repeats through generations, knew this was the first step to something better. "I appreciate that," I said finally. "But healing isn't about apologies alone. It's about what happens after." Amanda nodded slowly. "I know. I'm trying." We left later that evening, the sky turning soft and amber. The twins hugged Lily before she climbed into the car. On the drive home, she watched the sunset through the window, her reflection bright with contentment. "It felt good, Mom," she said. "Like maybe we can all start over." "Maybe we can," I said. In the weeks that followed, Amanda kept her word. She checked in gently, not with demands, but with questions. Family therapy became a rhythm for her household. My mother even joined a session or two. Small shifts, quiet but real. At home, life kept blooming in new directions. Lily's art teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, entered one of her drawings into a local competition. When the letter came announcing she'd won an honorable mention, Lily danced around the living room barefoot, holding the certificate like a trophy. We celebrated with ice cream and music turned up too loud for a Saturday night. Not long after, I found a message from Dr. Martinez, the therapist we'd started seeing. She wanted to schedule a joint session for me and Lily to talk about how far we'd come and what still needed mending. Sitting in her office a week later, I realized how much had changed. Dr. Martinez smiled at us. "You've both grown," she said. "Ethel, you've learned that protecting someone doesn't always mean staying silent. And Lily, you've learned that speaking your truth can make people listen." Lily looked up at me and grinned. "Mom's really brave," she said. I laughed softly. We both are. After that session, we stopped at a park near the river. The trees were heavy with spring leaves, the water moving slow and golden in the afternoon light. We sat on a bench eating pretzels from a paper bag. For a long while, neither of us spoke. Then Lily said, "Do you think Aunt Amanda will really change?" "I think she wants to," I answered, "and wanting to is the beginning." She nodded, brushing crumbs from her lap. "I think I'm ready to forgive her. Not forget, but forgive." There was wisdom in her words that startled me. I put an arm around her shoulders and pulled her close. The river murmured beside us, steady and endless. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she asked if Amanda might come to her art show. "I'll send her an invitation," I said. the same way she once sent one to you. Lily smiled sleepily. Maybe this one will have better surprises. When the day of the art show arrived, the school gymnasium was strung with rows of student work. Parents milled about with coffee cups, proud smiles everywhere. Lily's display stood near the center, a collection of drawings filled with soft color and careful lines. Her centerpiece was a mixed-media piece titled Becoming. It showed a small gray figure surrounded by bright butterflies, wings lifting her into color. Amanda came. So did James, the twins, and my mother. They stood beside me as Lily explained her work to visitors, her voice calm and clear. When Amanda leaned toward me and whispered, "She's really talented," I heard something new in her tone, genuine pride, not comparison. I looked at her, then at Lily, standing under the lights, smiling at her classmates. "She's remarkable," I said. Amanda nodded. "So are you." For a long time, I had waited for words like that, not realizing I no longer needed them to feel whole. But hearing them sincere and simple still mattered. As we left the school that evening, Lily ran ahead to hold the door open for the family trailing behind us. The air outside was cool and full of promise. Amanda caught my gaze for a moment, the faintest smile crossing her face, before she turned to help her daughters with their art folders. We walked to the car in silence, but it was a peaceful silence, the kind that comes when things are finally finding their right place. That night, after Lily fell asleep, I sat by her window and watched the streetlights stretch their glow across the pavement. For the first time, the memories of that cruel note felt far away, not erased, but transformed. Pain had turned into purpose. Anger had become courage. And somehow, in standing up for my daughter, I had found my own voice again. Outside, the night hummed with quiet life. Somewhere, a wind chime stirred. I closed my eyes and breathed it in, knowing there was one more chapter still to come, one that would close the circle not with revenge, but with peace. The days after the art show passed with the rhythm of calm water, no sudden waves, just a steady tide coming and going. The house held a kind of quiet that didn't ache anymore. It breathed. Most mornings, sunlight slipped through the kitchen window in a golden stripe that landed across the same oak table where Lily once cried. Now it was scattered with sketchbooks, seed packets, and mugs half full of cooling tea. Lily spent her evenings near that window painting with music low in the background. The hum of the radio, the scent of watercolors, the rustle of her brush. Those were our new lullabies. Every so often, she'd pause to show me a half-finished piece, her face glowing in the lamplight. Each drawing looked like a small act of healing color, finding its way back into a world that had gone gray for a while. Amanda called once a week now. The first few times, her voice trembled like she wasn't sure how to sound normal anymore. She didn't fill silences with advice or small talk. She simply asked how we were, how Lily was doing, and listened to the answers. I listened too to the pauses where arrogance used to live, to the way her tone had softened. Change wasn't quick, but it was real. One Sunday afternoon in early spring, Amanda invited us to her house for lunch. This time, it wasn't a production. No caterers, no decorations, no need to perform. She cooked herself simple roasted chicken potatoes and a lemon cake that smelled like the ones our grandmother used to make. When Lily and I arrived, the twins ran to the door. They each wore paint-flecked aprons and hugged Lily so tightly she dropped the flowers she'd brought. The three girls disappeared down the hallway to their art room, and the house filled with the sound of laughter, pure, unpracticed, real. Amanda stood by the counter arranging salad, her sleeves rolled to the elbow, a faint streak of flour on her cheek. For once, she looked comfortable in her own imperfection. "I've been trying to keep things smaller," she said as we sat down. "Less about the show, more about the people." I smiled, pouring water into our glasses. "It suits you." She exhaled softly, almost a laugh. You know, when you left that day after the porch, I was so angry I couldn't see straight, but I think I needed that moment. The mirror you held up, I finally had to look. I didn't answer right away. Outside, wind moved through the trees, the branches swaying gently against the window. Do you hate me for it? She asked quietly. No, I said. I think I stopped hating you the minute I stopped needing your approval. Her eyes shimmered and she nodded, swallowing hard. I don't deserve forgiveness yet. Maybe not, I said softly. But you deserve the chance to do better. And that's something. When lunch ended, Lily and the twins presented us with a painting they'd made together. A tree with 3 trunks joined at the base, each branch reaching upward in different colors. At the bottom, in careful handwriting, they'd written one word: family. Amanda brushed her fingers over the letters, her voice catching. They came up with it themselves, she said. I looked at Lily, who smiled shyly and shrugged. It's just true now, she said. The car ride home was quiet, except for the sound of tires on the road. The sky had softened into the pale gold of late afternoon. I caught Lily watching the world drift by her reflection, bright in the glass. She's really trying, isn't she? She said. She is, I replied. People can change when they decide to tell the truth about who they are. Lily turned toward me, her expression thoughtful. Then maybe that note wasn't the worst thing. Maybe it had to happen. I let out a slow breath, feeling the truth of her words. Sometimes pain does that, I said. It cracks things open so light can get in. The following month, Lily's school held its spring showcase. I was asked to help organize the event, and Amanda volunteered to run the snack table with the twins. Watching her, their hair pulled back, handing out lemonade to parents and children, I felt something I hadn't in years. Not comparison, not resentment, just peace. After the show, Lily found me outside near the steps, the evening wind brushing her hair. Ms. Rodriguez says I might be able to join the summer art program, she said, eyes wide with excitement. It's at the community college downtown. That sounds perfect, I said, hugging her close. You've earned it. She smiled into my shoulder, her voice muffled. You think Grandma and Aunt Amanda will come see it? I think they will, I said. But even if they don't, you'll still shine. In the weeks that followed, Amanda kept making small gestures, showing up when she said she would, listening without turning conversations into comparisons, finding joy in quiet moments. She even called to ask if I wanted to help her start a community art day at the library. Not a big production, she promised, laughing. Just something that lets kids feel proud of what they make. It surprised me how easy it was to say yes. Summer arrived warm and forgiving. Our first art day drew families from every corner of town. Children sat cross-legged on the grass, with watercolor sets, parents hovering nearby with paper cups of lemonade. Amanda managed the supplies, Lily helped younger kids mix colors, and I stood beside them both, handing out brushes and watching the day unfold. At one point, I caught Amanda looking toward me. She raised her hand slightly, as if in a silent thank you, then turned back to help a child fix a torn piece of paper. There was no need for words. When the sun began to dip, the children spread their paintings along the fence to dry. A light breeze lifted the corners, making the pictures flutter like wings. Lily ran toward me with paint on her hands and cheeks. Look, she said breathlessly. Everyone's art looks different, but it all fits together. I looked at the line of colors dancing in the wind and thought, yes, it does. That night, after we'd packed the last of the supplies into Amanda's car, she hugged me. Not the quick, polite kind she used to give, but a real one, arm strong, breath steady. Thank you, she said, for not giving up on me. I smiled faintly. Thank you for deciding to grow up with me. Driving home, the horizon was painted in soft orange light. The day's warmth still clung to the air. Lily leaned her head against the window and whispered, "Mom, I think we made something good today." I nodded, eyes on the road. "We did, sweetheart. Something good and something lasting." Back home, I stood by her door for a while, watching her sleep. Her sketchbook lay open beside her pillow, a half-drawn butterfly stretching its wings across the page. The fan hummed quietly, stirring the air with its slow rhythm. I moved to the window and looked out. Across the street, porch, lights glowed against the dark, steady and kind. Somewhere in the distance, I heard laughter, a sound that no longer carried weight, just life moving forward. Peace doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in quietly when you've learned to stop chasing it. It's in the mornings when you wake without dread, in the nights when you breathe without replaying the past. It's knowing you've built something true from what once hurt you. As I turned off the light, the room filled with the soft glow of moonlight. It fell across Lily's drawings pinned to the wall, dozens of them all full of color, movement, and life. Some wounds don't fade because we forgive. They fade because we finally let go. And in that space, new beauty takes root. If this story found its way to your heart, tell me where you're listening from, down in the comments. And if you've ever learned that peace can grow from the hardest places, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for spending this time with me, and may you always keep the kind of peace that stays.